Hello and welcome to the virtual towers of Binary Arcadia, where the game's gone long into the night. Today we're talking all things Death Stranding and the new details released at the Tribeca Conversations, which happened I think about a week ago. So I'll kick us off. So it looks like from a few days ago, Kojima has done a little photograph on Instagram which sort of suggests that he's editing a trailer. So we're thinking we're going to see a trailer in the short term, maybe a month. Maybe that's something he's doing for E3. But let's get a bit more into the detail of what he spoke about earlier on this interview he did. So he went into a lot of detail, a lot of general detail more than anything. I don't think there was anything particularly, eye-opening in terms of understanding of the game. So he was talking about Norman and how he plays himself at a point in the game, and in order to take his physical form, they scanned his body for 2 days, including taking facial expressions and stuff. So I'm guessing we're going to see some gorgeous physical attributes as well as very facial movements and that.
And talking of gorgeous physical attributes, I don't know if it was a joke, but wasn't there a hint that you're going to see everything of Norman Reedus?
Yes.
So basically, Starkers. He's going to be Starkers in it at some point.
Yeah, which I can't quite work that out. I'm not sure how. I mean, it's a Hideo Kojima game, so I guess you could argue that he could put anything in there and make it work, but I'm not sure how we would get to a scenario where there would be a need to progress the story to see him naked. I don't get that. But
yeah, but at the same time, we probably should, all of these interpretations, all of these deductions we're making, we have to remember, one, it's Hideo Kojima, who speaks in riddles just, normally. Probably when he buys something from the news agency, speaking in riddles. But then secondly, it was all done through a translator as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So there could be stuff lost in translation.
Yeah. I find that a bit odd. He spoke a little bit more about Sam's character. It's Sam Porter, I think, isn't it, Tabs?
I think it's Bridges. I thought it was Bridges.
Oh no, Sam Bridges. Sorry, yeah. He is a porter, or he works for the company Porter, or something like that.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. But he just talked about that he's going to be a badass character. I think that was the term he used. He's going to have a lot of attitude, but he's also going to be humorous. So there's obviously going to be some humorous slant to him. I guess a little bit like, because Snake in the Metal Gear Solid series had a little bit of humour to him, didn't he, Tabs?
Yeah,
almost
but again,
like very
like
dry humour.
Like you say, though, it's hard. There's all these things he's kind of saying and putting together, which, from what we've seen from trailers, it looks like a super serious, profound, metaphorical game. And he's saying stuff about being naked and having some gags in there and stuff. It's just
it's odd, isn't it? Yeah,
it is odd.
I mean, ultimately, we don't really know a lot about the game, do we? Really?
No, we've got theories, and there's millions of theories going around the net, but hard facts.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely circle back to theories shortly. I think because I think you've got some really interesting ones I'd like to hear about.
I've got one I really want to talk about. Yeah, I can't wait, but I'll let you carry on because it's important to set stage.
So he's saying just some little broad brush details that I took from it, that it's an open world game, but it's a very singular narrative. So it's a very singular path of story. So it's not like Heavy Rain where you can alter the story. It sounds like there's a story to be told, but it's sort of done in open world. So it's going to be interesting to see how they make that work.
I will say though, mate, with that in mind, very fair, very valid. However, he did say something about there being something secret in the game he's worked in where you have to make a decision. He was talking about films and books and how games are different because you can actually affect them. You can make. I think he was alluding to the fact you can make choices, and I'm sure he said there was something there that he can't talk about that is kind of up to the player. And again, it's hard to say for sure, but I'm sure there was a hint towards whether that's decisions throughout the game or just kind of one monumental decision which will affect the path of the game.
So maybe it's still a singular narrative, but maybe there's an opportunity because there's this female character that keeps getting muted, which I think we've seen in a few of the trailers, and I think it's sort of been muted that will be used for the online co-op that he sort of said about recently. So one of you would play as the male character, one as a female character. I wonder whether maybe you at some point you have to decide and then you go on with the female character. I don't know. That's an odd one. Yeah, I don't know. But he said it's going to be a very emotional story. He expects people to cry at the game, which is really interesting. I don't know. And as all Hideo Kojima games, he's saying there will be extremely long cutscenes. Which, I mean, we've come to know and love that, and in some ways hate that about Hideo Kojima games, but
that had people in stitches, didn't it, at the Tribeca? They were all laughing because, it's a trait of his, isn't it? He loves his cinematography and he fancies himself as a bit of a director, doesn't he? And he's pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah, he is, to be fair. You can't take that away from him, can you? So I know he mentioned about this. Very cryptic, this bit. He mentioned about there'll be a part of the game where you don't control the character. You don't control Sam, which was all a bit odd. And he said you'd only control the camera, which I thought was a bit of an odd one. What did you make of that?
Well, I texted you, didn't I? My immediate thought, it just reminded me of this film that was called Being John Malkovich. And basically, John Malkovich is a real person. He's an actor. Pretty famous. It's not been much for too long now, though. But it was such a weird film, and it was to do with the idea. I think basically the concept was somebody had found a portal where they could actually be and control John Malkovich in his life, and then he was experiencing like this strange phenomena, and he was getting really annoyed with it because people were like living his life for him. It was a very weird film. It just made me think of that for some weird reason. But then I kind of developed it a bit more, and we'll come back to it, but I kind of have a theory now. But I mean, it sounds interesting. It sounds a bit like, I don't know, it could be like almost game breaking, fourth wall breaking, where you've got this, because he alluded to the fact that Sam might wink at you and you'll really love Sam or Norman in that moment, as if to say, why would you really love him? Because it's just funny and engaging, and a bit different, change of pace.
I sort of went on a much simpler take on that. Lots of games are in having these like photo modes in them now, and we've seen some gorgeous visuals on the game. I just wondered whether he meant you would be taking photos. There was like a photo mode basically where you could take pictures of Norman in the areas. Yeah,
that could be actually, like you say, a much less down the rabbit hole approach that I went. But no, like you say, because we've seen it in like Zelda, where you had the ability to do selfies and you could pose at the camera. Then I think Naughty Dog, Uncharted had a photo mode that was quite elaborate. So it would make sense if you find a camera in the game and then you can, like you say, it's such a gorgeous game. It'd be a shame not to capture some nice moments.
No, I think those two are very much far ends of the scale, with yours being almost like a game-breaking type thing and mine being a very simple thing. It's more likely to be something halfway between those two. The one thing I did want to mention, he spoke about connectivity and how, and I thought this was like the ultimate irony. He was saying everyone's disconnected from everything, and playing this game, which you could argue playing computer games on your own is the ultimate disconnection from the world. And he was saying that we're like disconnected from the world, and this game will go about to try and connect people, which I thought was very strange. I can't quite grasp that one, but it almost felt like
Sorry, mate. No, it's just it's definitely ironic, like you say. I think he was alluding to the fact that everybody's on their phones these days. We're poring over digital media. We don't properly perhaps socialise like we used to. We're not as we don't develop these big communities. We're all very individual on our individual paths, and I think he was alluding to that. But as you say, games in life don't really help that, do they? Because they suck you away into a virtual world. So it's very ironic. But
I don't.
I admire the metaphor though, because it is a big. Well, is it a big problem these days? I think it could become a problem.
Yeah, potentially. But he's creating a product that aids all that thing that he thinks is a problem. It's a very odd scenario. I don't know. I'm not sure how that will work. It just seems very odd. Maybe that is lost in translation. I don't know. I couldn't really get that. It seemed weird. And then it looks like it's. Everyone's seen it's a post-apocalyptic world, but there's some suggestion that it won't be too far into the future, which is really interesting. And then the final point that came out, and this was sort of mentioned in passing more than anything. He mentioned about Google Stadia and what a brilliant idea it was, and how he would like to, in the future, develop something for the platform, which I thought was very interesting. And again, sort of linking back to that whole connectivity that he was sort of talking about.
He loves technology, doesn't he? He loves anything where he can express an idea in a different way. I think he was, all going back to like the old, the PlayStation and Psycho Mantis, when you had to unplug your controller and stick it into player 2 to actually get it to work. Or one of the codecs, you had to get the number off the back of the game box. Just these little real quirky lateral ideas that he's put into games, and I suppose it probably excites him, doesn't it? He just starts getting all, forming these ideas in his head. I think he's always thinking about 20 years down the line anyway, isn't he?
And the key missing things were no even hint of a release date, I don't think there was a great deal of detail in this interview, even though it went on for like an hour. I don't think there was that much stuff came out. And it does seem like there's some sort of Sony embargo that says he can't say too much about the game at the moment. I think he mentioned it a couple of times, which sort of rings true. And I wonder whether is that linked to the fact that Sony aren't doing a big conference at this year's E3? Is that going to be their big drop? We're going to hear all about this Death Stranding and what it's about, and maybe it could be playable, maybe. I think there's a sort of hint to that. Maybe that's where this trailer comes in. But
I think you bang on, mate. Specifically because I know there was a line mentioned in it, and we'll come back to this in my theory that hopefully I'll get to share. But the line mentioned was genre defining. So he's confirmed it is open world action game, but he says it's genre defining because he's doing something new in it. So that makes you think, as you say, it's going to be a bomb when he actually drops the concept to us. And as you point out, Sony probably want to have that moment to kind of to compete with the likes of Microsoft and Nintendo come E3 time. They want to make sure they've got some relevance and some buzz, on all the platforms, YouTube, whatever. Definitely. So I think that's probably why they've got him on lockdown.
Which makes sense. And on that note, let's talk about these theories and tabs. Go for it.
Oh, wow. Where to start?
Everyone watching, engage brains now, because this is going to be convoluted.
Well, it's hard to paint a picture as well, isn't it? But,
exactly.
Strands of thoughts in my mind. But anyway,
strands of thought.
Oh, yeah. Didn't
Excuse the pun.
So I suppose I've got two main things that I don't know how they tie up together. But I kind of like the ideas. So this is the main thing anyway, right? So we know it's going to be an open world action game. We know it's called Death Stranding. There's been some sort of a synopsis released at some point by Sony suggesting that Sam Bridges is his character. There's been, I don't think they said there's been a cataclysmic event, but I think we're aware of that's caused this fragmentation of reality, that it's split, reality is no longer how we, know it as now.
Perceive it,
Yeah, and Sam's job is to bring everything back together, to connect the world again, if you like, which fits with what Kojima's been saying. So the connectivity stuff as well, has just made me think that like, so let's imagine an open world game. I use the example with you, Rich, Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So we were playing it, you know, it's an individual experience. It's very much a single player game, but we played it cooperatively in the sense that we shared our experiences, our discoveries along the way. So in that sense, you could almost say it's a shared experience. So my idea is perhaps that we are all playing as a version of Norman Reedus / Sam Bridges. And, you know, we all are somehow, all these fragmented realities are like a joined experience in the game. So, you know, literally like I'm playing Zelda, but instead there's like there's a shrine in Zelda I go to, and I can literally see a window into your version of Zelda, into your game.
Okay.
So that was drawn specifically from this this weird thing he said about finding a camera and seeing Norman. So that just made me think you could almost find, maybe there's little portals, there's areas in the game where you can kind of look into another person's game and interact with them in some way. You can see their character, maybe even speak to them. I mean, it's a bit...
For what purpose? What do you see as the purpose behind that? There must be something that's...
Yeah, no, definitely. I do think there's a purpose.
Do you think...
Maybe there's ways you can help each other with puzzles. You can share things with each other to make it easier for you. I mean, more so though, what would be great if there's actually, you know, there's say a lever in my world or a crank handle in my world or some interactive property in my world that if I do something with it, well, in your world, there's a cause and effect to it. Right. And it changes something in your world. So there's literally, you know, a specific need to cooperate in that sense. I mean, I don't have an idea how he would work this, you know, because it would have to be online, therefore, wouldn't it?
And that's what I was going to say. I think an interesting point was made, actually, in this Tribeca interview that may be linked to what you're saying here. I think Kojima said this game will be best experienced with a PlayStation Plus subscription.
Really?
Yeah, he said something along them lines. It was a very odd thing. And he said it again, well, like most of the things he said, he sort of said it in passing. And I thought, you mentioned this to me earlier on in the week, and I did think that sort of rings true. You know, are you getting a better play experience because of this connectivity with other players, looking into your world and maybe helping you? And that's why this that's Xbox, PlayStation Plus subscription is going to give you somehow better playthrough. I don't know. I mean, it's intriguing.
Oh, mate, that revs the old engines a little bit more then for me.
Yeah,
it does, because it makes it sound like, okay, it's an optional thing, this kind of connectivity thing. You could just play it single player offline. There's a story there. However, it's best experience because you've got this sort of, this interactivity with other players. Like, I'll just give you two examples of games I've kind of seen this idea a little bit in, or heard about at least. So I mentioned in a previous video of ours, Bloodborne, and how you could leave clues around which would warn people of traps, of deaths, of, you know, hard monsters, and you could kind of interact with each other in that way. Another game, I've not played it yet, but the new Devil May Cry. Apparently, there's sections where you can literally see other players playing the game fighting in the background.
Oh, wow.
You can't go there and do anything, but you can see them fighting and actually kind of playing the game. So I just wonder if it's like a super extension on that idea, which becomes, you know, so much more ambitious, and it's exciting to think about. But shall I hit you? Go on.
And I agree with that. My concern is not everybody has... because obviously it's a subscription service to go online with your PlayStation. Not everyone has that. Not everyone has access to the internet on their PlayStation. So if that is a fundamental part of the game, I don't see how he can make a game for everybody. I don't get that. I think he's pigeon. I'm sure that it's few and far between these people that don't have internet and etc. But, you know, I don't know.
I just think if it's an optional thing, mate, so like compare it to Red Dead. So there's a story in Red Dead. Anybody can play it. We can all see it through. And it's a great, you know, it's a key part of the game. And it's amazing. However, there's things like the hunting mechanic. So I did that. I got totally lost in that. and really enjoyed it. You didn't do that so much, did you? It wasn't quite as compelling for whatever reason. So if it's an optional part of the game like that, then it could still be implemented, and it just makes it that much more of a unique experience, though, if you do make use of that aspect of the game.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So can I come on to my other part? My two-part theory.
Yeah, come on then.
I've got that first theory in one hand and this theory's in another. It's very, I don't know how to bring my hands together on it, to be honest. I don't know how they work together. And this is the one I'm least confident in. So we know how we've seen Sam Bridges couriering, basically, both dead bodies, seemingly corpses that are kind of packaged and wrapped up.
Yeah.
And also we've seen him carrying babies in kind of sealed chambers filled with some sort of fluid to keep them back.
Just to interject, we have actually seen as well on one of the trailers a body that is wrapped up as if it's a dead body, but there's actually someone. It's obviously someone's disguised as a dead body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I think Sam interacts with them. When I think it might be the Man with the Golden Mask trailer. I think it might be that trailer.
Well, that just puts the cat amongst the pigeons there and makes me feel even less confident about this idea. But can I share it anyway? Because I think it's...
Yeah, I'm not... I was sort of thinking that sort of... go on, carry on.
Yeah. So you've got corpses he seems to be, porting around, and then you've got these babies. So I couldn't figure out for so long. But then I just thought, I've seen a lot of clues in the clips we've seen that time isn't again, as we know, time running one directionally. And it seems to be it goes back and forth. We've seen plants, I think, growing super fast and then dying, and people dying really quickly and withering, and it seems that time isn't flowing normally. So what if, to bring this world back together, to connect the world again, Sam is actually having to find, from all different points in time throughout history, perhaps in the future, these brilliant minds, these renowned brilliant minds, so an Einstein or I don't know, an Aristotle or something like that. And he's finding these people in different timelines, whether they're dead or whether they're a baby, and he's porting them to some place where they can actually realize these people again. So whether it's, if time's running backwards in this particular place, they can essentially reanimate the dead people. They can bring them back to life. And the babies, they can fast forward time to make them grow and be adults again. It's probably not going to be anything to do with that, but I just thought it was an interesting little idea and a play on time. And if it did turn out to be like that, I think that would be really cool. But I don't know how that fits with the game itself. And
it makes me wonder whether maybe the sections where you're not necessarily controlling Sam, you're controlling time. So Sam's doing his thing, so traversing a landscape or whatever, and you can control the time. I don't know.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Do you see what I mean? There's been some really weird shots. Those shots where we've seen him just walking, basically. He's packed up with loads of stuff. I think there's one or two where we've seen almost little hovercrafts following him around. But the camera's in such a weird place. It's like it's when you get one of those cinematic cameras, and it's almost like you're not controlling that player almost. Then that might have just been done for the trailer, but I don't know. It's so frustrating. I don't think I've ever been as frustrated as I am about Death Stranding as any other game.
It's so tantalising, isn't it? There's so much going on there. You feel like there's a richness of ideas and concepts that you just want to get stuck into, but it's all intangible and hard to pin down.
But I think there's lots of smoke and mirrors going on as well. I feel like we're getting little tidbits of information here and there that don't make any sense when you put them all together, because there's loads of sections missing in between them all.
Oh yeah, and Kojima knows what he's doing. He knows how to spin a yarn, doesn't he? And have everybody eating out of his hand with it. But Yeah, I'm just really excited about it, and
Yeah.
let's find out already.
Well, we're sort of probably about a month away in terms of when we're filming this from E3, and I'm fairly confident we'll see something big at E3 about this. It certainly seems like it's coming together now. I don't know whether we're into polish territory with this yet, but I certainly think we're a good way into the development on this. Will we see it this year, do we think, Tabs? Not so sure.
I think there was a lot of talk at one point, perhaps a few months ago now, that it was going to be 2019. However, then we go and hear Cerny's comments in Wired about cross-generational games and Death Stranding being one of them. So with that in mind, it makes you think, would they release it in 2019 and then summer of 2020 with the PS5 release a PS5 version? I don't know. It's a bit weird.
Don't know. It's interesting. The wait continues, basically.
Yeah, the theorising continues.
Yeah, exactly.
I just hope it's not a massive disappointment after all this build-up.
Oh, God, can you imagine? Oh, I'll be devastated.
We love Kojima as well, and I don't want his career to go down the Swanee.
No.
But everything, everything we heard in Tribeca from Norman Reedus, he's pretty enamoured with him and all, isn't he? He's talks about how, he'd follow him to almost the ends of the earth. He'd follow him in everything he does because he gets this sense that he is this great genius and visionary that is way above him. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, almost like he's transcended from. He's almost transcended from games into this unique space that's sort of between films and games.
Yeah, he's found his own niche and
yeah. That's sort of the way it came across anyway, but maybe in the future, gaming games are so big now. Maybe that's what we'll see as we move forward. Maybe games will become more cinematic.
Well, it seems to be going that way, doesn't it? With the likes of The Last of Us, Naughty Dog's whole, mastery of storytelling. Hopefully that'll be infectious because, they clearly sell well, don't they? So
yeah, exactly.
Games as art. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I know you love a bit of that. Anyway, I think that's about as much as we could possibly rabbit on about Death Stranding and all the little we know about it. Well, that's another video done. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, give us a like. If you didn't, obviously a dislike.
Feedback's always welcome.
And I think that's about it. Another video for the archive.
Stamped and completed.